The Indian economy is going through immense pressure due to ongoing Middle East conflict. This pressure is primarily driven by a problem of high energy import bills and a weakening of the Indian currency. If we deep dive into the root causes of these problems, we will find that they are a part of a single complex mechanism. A mechanism in which they are integrated and interconnected with each other. In simple words, they are basically feeding each other in a vicious cycle that creates multifold pressure on the Indian economy. There is a term in the economy for this effect called a double whammy. But the question over here is, how did India reach to that extreme level where India is struggling with these challenges? To answer this question, we need to understand the role of oil in the world's geopolitics and its influence on the international relations. If we see the landscape of world geopolitics and its influence on our lives, it's barely visible. But it plays a crucial role in our lives, whether we are filling petrol or diesel in the vehicle or buying anything from the market. Everything is connected to this factor. The deeper you will go, more complicated it will get. The geopolitical shifts primarily revolve around oil. The entire global economy has developed around this single commodity, therefore every state in the world wants it. Talking about the importance of the oil, it holds tremendous potential of transforming the world because it powers the global energy systems, drives international trades, and shapes geopolitics of the world. And that's where it starts playing a game-changing role in shaping the world we live in. Talking about India's oil consumption, India is the world's third largest crude oil importer and consumer after China and the United States. India's crude oil import range between 85% to 90% of its total oil consumption. Therefore, India is heavily dependent on crude oil imports from other countries. But here is the critical part. It makes our Indian economy vulnerable to global shocks. Now let's understand these global shocks and their impacts on India. Before the Ukraine-Russia war in 2022, India used to buy oil from the West Asia region. And Iraq, Saudi Arabia and UAE were the leading suppliers of oil for India. But after the outbreak of Russia-Ukraine war, global oil markets saw a dramatic shift. Because after this major event, the United States and Europe imposed sanctions on Russia. As a result, Russian oil companies started finding new markets for their oil to absorb the losses. Therefore, Russia started selling this oil at heavily discounted prices. During that time, China and India started buying more oil from Russia at highly discounted prices. Meanwhile, India's oil purchase went from 2% in 2021 to a peak of nearly 40% by 2023-24, making it one of the highest jumps. As a result, India's oil dependency on the Middle East dropped from roughly 60% to 44% during this period. But the United States and Europe were not happy with India's decision because they wanted to isolate Russia. The West, especially the United States, criticized India's continued oil purchases, arguing that such trade indirectly supported Russia's war economy. But the irony was, Europe was also benefiting from this oil purchase because India was supplying refined oil such as refined diesel and jet fuel to the European countries. At the same time, the United States increased diplomatic and trade pressure on India through tariffs and policy changes. In response to these geopolitical changes, India gradually diversified its oil basket by increasing purchases from the United States and other suppliers. This was a significant strategic move for India because both the United States and Russia remain crucial geopolitical partners. Again, the situation started changing the trade balance after the eruption of the West Asia crisis. The present US-Iran-Israel conflict has started creating problems for the global economy, including India. Talking about the present scenario, India has now started buying Russian oil at a market price but with narrow discounts. Because Russia has clearly said that it will not provide oil at the highly discounted prices as it was providing before. It means that India is now paying more for the same quantity of oil which it used to get at a low price. Finally, that is ultimately burdening India's forex reserves and increasing India's oil import bill. This market shift has also started weakening Indian rupee by creating a demand and supply imbalance in the foreign exchange market. That is mainly happening because the majority of transactions in the global markets are settled in the US dollars. To make the settlements of these payments, importers need more US dollars to buy commodities such as gold and silver, oil, and electronic items from the global market. As a result, Indian importers sell more Indian rupees to buy US dollars to pay for these goods. In this situation, market gets more flooded with Indian rupees, leading to weakening of the Indian currency. In other words, more supply means less value in the market.